I'm going to clean up the poor brothers. You guys have no right to be at a fancy event like a wedding.
My brother dropped out of high school and is now 47, working in delivery. This seemed amusing to Thomas, who is the son of a company president and lives a wealthy life. But my brother dropped out of high school to put me through college. I can't forgive anyone who tramples on my brother's resolve, who made that sacrifice for me. Your company will be gone soon too, Thomas. I tell Thomas, who is mocking my brother. He looks like he wants to say, "What can a poor guy like you do?" But he just doesn't know. I couldn't stand up to him in the past, but now I have the power to do so. No one has been able to stop him until now. But he will finally face the consequences of his actions. I am Mark Twain, 43 years old. I am the president of Twain Holdings, a company in the retail business. The company I started about 10 years ago has grown rapidly, thanks to understanding the needs of the times. Now, including affiliated companies, it generates annual sales of $100 million. I can definitely say that my success in running such a large company is all thanks to my brother. The truth is, I lost my parents when I was in the 8th grade. I was still in mandatory education and had no means to support myself alone. With no relatives to rely on, I was at a loss. My brother, Justin Twain, who is 4 years older than me, said to me as I struggled,
"I'll work to earn our living expenses. So, don't worry, Mark."
Those words seemed like a ray of hope to me. However, even as a middle schooler, I knew that it meant using my brother as a stepping stone.
But what about you, Justin?
I'm going to drop out of high school, but don't worry about me. You need to graduate from high school and college. Nowadays, you can't get a decent job without an education.
Okay.
I worried about whether my brother would really be okay dropping out of high school. But as a middle schooler who couldn't work, I had no other choice but to rely on him. I felt guilty, but I nodded. The story of me losing my parents and my brother dropping out to support our family soon spread among our classmates. Most of them were concerned about us, but there were some who took the opportunity to look down on us.
Those poor brothers. So your brother's finally dropping out, huh?
It was Thomas Cruz, one of my classmates. His father was the president of Cruise Tech, a company with annual sales of about $50 million. It was clear from his everyday appearance that he led a wealthy life. To him, we were perfect targets for harassment and boasting.
So what? I just thought it was sad. Losing your parents and having your high school-aged brother go out to work. It's tear-jerking, right?
I was furious that he mocked my brother's tough choice. I wanted to argue back, but we had no power to do so at the time. Moreover, causing unnecessary trouble could disrupt the education my brother was supporting. So I couldn't argue back with Thomas, no matter what he said. Despite his mockery, I knew about Thomas's misdeeds. One night after studying late at the library, in an almost empty school building, I saw Thomas through a window, talking with the principal. Thomas handed the principal an envelope stuffed with cash. He was likely trying to get favorable treatment for grades or recommendation letters.
That jerk.
But the principal refused the bribe with a wave of his hand. Seeing that reassured me of the principal's integrity. However, that scene has stayed in my mind for nearly 30 years. And Thomas's wrongdoing didn't stop there. One day, while walking around town on my day off, I saw Thomas. He was chatting happily with a female student next to him.
Is there anything else you want?
Well, next.
That girl already had a boyfriend. Thomas was holding a large shopping bag. He was probably using his money to go on dates with a girl who had a boyfriend. Does having money mean you can get away with anything? Every time I saw him do something wrong, I questioned it, but I had no power to call him out. Why does his wealth let him get away with all these wrongdoings? Even with those doubts, I had to ignore his misdeeds to survive. Despite everything, thanks to my brother's help, I managed to finish middle and high school and graduated from college with a scholarship.
Thanks to you, Justin. Really, thank you.
I'm so glad I got to see you graduate. I'm sorry you had to use a scholarship, though.
It's fine. Now I can work and pay it back. If you ever need anything, don't hesitate to rely on me.
That means a lot. Thanks, Mark.
Having a college degree made job hunting easy. Thanks to my diligent studies, I had a range of options and got into a company with good pay and conditions. After working as a full-time employee for about 10 years, I started my own business, which is now running smoothly. As a result, I now lead a life without any financial worries. Considering I lost my parents, my life turned out as well as it possibly could. On the other hand, my brother remains a high school dropout. So, he has no guarantee of finding another job if he quits, and at 47, he's still working as a delivery person. While I have successfully started a business, I feel guilty that my brother is still stuck in delivery work. So, I once asked him, "Justin, why don't you come work at my company? The conditions would be better, and you wouldn't have to physically restrain yourself from morning till night."
No, I'm good.
Why not?
I know your company isn't a place for someone without an education like me.
Whenever I offered, my brother always refused. It's true that my company mainly hires college graduates. But if he wanted a job, I could make an exception. Some employees might be unhappy, but my brother deserves that much. It's no exaggeration to say that our company exists because of you. So, please don't hold back.
I'm just happy to see you succeed. That's enough for me. Treating me differently wouldn't be right.
I think he's holding back because he feels his lack of education makes him unqualified. But if he's that concerned, I'd prefer he just join my company. Forcing him wouldn't be right, though, if he couldn't fit in. Since work is somewhere you go to every day, it's best to choose a place you like. So, I told him to reach out whenever he changed his mind and left the decision up to him. As a business owner, I had the good fortune to meet someone and get married. I now lived with my wife and son. Even though I became independent after getting married, I explained the situation to my wife, and we built a house near my parents' home. My brother is single, but he told me not to worry about him. Still, I couldn't just leave them alone because I was happy. I owe my current life to my brother, and I wanted to repay him in every way I could. One day, my brother and I were invited to a classmate's wedding. The classmate's name was Kevin Costner. At 43, he finally found a good match. While it might be late to think about kids, it's never too late to find a lifelong partner. At home, my brother and I talked about the wedding. You've also been invited to, Justin. What do you think?
Can I really go?
He seemed surprised to be invited. Don't you remember playing with Kevin back in the day?
I remember, but...
That's why I'm sure Kevin wants you to come too.
Oh, I hope so.
Maybe because my brother dropped out of high school and still worked as a delivery person. He often spoke self-deprecatingly. But to me, he was always someone to be proud of. You're well liked by many people. That's why you got invited. You should be more confident.
Really?
Yeah. Let's go, bro. It'll be great to catch up.
Alright, I'll go.
We responded to the invitation and started preparing for the wedding day. The day finally came. My brother and I wore dark suits and headed to the venue. I wondered who else was invited, but we saw many familiar faces. It looks like our middle and high school classmates are here.
Really?
Yeah, it'll be nice to talk to them later. We chatted while checking in and looked for the groom. Soon, we found Kevin. Kevin.
Hey, Mark, and Justin, too. Thanks for coming.
Kevin noticed us and greeted us with a big smile. Thanks for inviting us. So, you're finally getting married.
Yeah, she's really beautiful and kind.
I saw her picture. She is truly beautiful. Then he gave a slight, awkward smile and said,
She's so beautiful that sometimes it gets me into a bit of trouble, but she's truly a wonderful person, more than I deserve. She's talking with some other friends right now, but later you must meet her.
Yeah, definitely. I'd love to talk later.
Of course.
After a brief chat, it seemed another guest had arrived, and Kevin moved on. Watching him leave, I turned to my brother and said, Kevin looked really happy. Amy, right? I haven't met her yet, but she must be amazing.
Yeah, I'm glad he found such a wonderful person.
After that, we walked around the venue, taking in the sights. The place was beautifully decorated with garlands and flowers. Every time I saw a classmate, I struck up a conversation. My brother joined in and seemed to be enjoying himself too. While we were chatting with various classmates, someone suddenly called out to us.
Hey, could it be the Twain brothers?
Hearing that voice gave me a bad feeling. Even after more than 20 years, you never forget a voice that you dislike. Turning around, I saw Thomas. He walked over to us, grinning.
Long time no see. I thought you might be homeless somewhere, but I guess you could at least afford a suit.
Thomas.
Did you bring a proper wedding gift? Hopefully, it wasn't just $10. You'd get cut off for such a cheap present.
I sighed, annoyed by his opening remarks. You seem to be doing well.
Yeah, of course. I took over my dad's company, so now I'm the president. Quite different from poor guys like you.
At that point, my brother leaned in and whispered to me.
Who is he?
My classmate. I had never told my brother about Thomas. There was no need to burden him with the mockery I endured, especially when he worked so hard. Thomas, still grinning, stepped closer to my brother.
So, you're Mark's brother? Dropped out of high school to support him, right? That's so sad.
His condescending tone was too much, even for my kind brother, who frowned.
You're a delivery guy, right? Must suck to have only bottom-rung jobs because you didn't finish school. We order online a lot because it's too much hassle to go shopping. so we rely on you.
Is that all you have to say?
My brother seemed to decide it wasn't worth engaging with him any further. But Thomas found my brother's discomfort amusing.
Don't be like that. I'm actually glad to see you.
Thomas grabbed a beer from a table. Then, out of nowhere, he splashed the beer all over my brother. Caught off guard, my brother couldn't dodge it. Helpless, my brother ended up soaked in beer from head to toe. Justin.
The poor brothers are getting cleaned up. You guys don't deserve to be at such a fancy event like a wedding.
Beer dripped from my brother's hair and suit. There were gasps from the people around us. Seeing my brother drenched and humiliated, Thomas looked very pleased with himself.
Ha! You can't stay at the wedding in those clothes. Go home, go home.
Thomas. Anger boiled up from the pit of my stomach. As I started to stride toward him, my brother stopped me.
It's okay, Mark. He's not wrong.
He probably thought that, being a high school dropout, he didn't belong here. But I couldn't forgive anyone for treating my brother like this. Despite knowing he'd limit his future by dropping out, he raised me in place of our parents. Thanks to him, I graduated from college and now live a comfortable life. To see my brother treated this way was unforgivable. I hadn't planned to bring this up at a wedding, but if Thomas was going to pull a stunt like this, I had other plans. Your company will be gone too, Thomas.
Huh? Who do you think you are? What can poor brothers who only know delivery work do? I'm the president.
Thomas scoffed at my words.
Are you planning to crash a truck into my company? That's about the only cleaning method delivery guys like you can think of. That's pretty reckless.
I wouldn't do anything that crude. There are other ways.
So, what are you going to do? Brag all you want, but you'll just embarrass yourself when you can't back it up. Go ahead, if you can.
Sure, taking down a company isn't easy. Even my brother, worried, called out to me.
Mark.
It's all right, Justin. There was no need to worry. I had the means to deal with him. But first, we needed to address the immediate issue. I couldn't leave my brother soaked in beer like this. We need a towel here, please. Someone nearby quickly brought over a towel. My brother stepped aside to dry off and change in the waiting room. I made a request of him before facing Thomas again. Thomas waited for me, grinning. With me glaring at him, he said,
So, you were bragging earlier, but how exactly are you planning to make my company disappear? You must have a plan to be talking so big, right?
He thought there was nothing a poor guy could do. But he should have taken this chance to run while he could. I had intended to handle this through more formal channels, but if Thomas wanted to escalate, so be it. He was about to be humiliated in front of everyone. It seems there's been some suspicious activity in your company. I had it investigated.
What?
Falsifying receipts to inflate expenses, kickbacks on contractor fees, maybe even tax evasion. Thomas clearly panicked at my accusations. No one had ever confronted him about this before.
What are you talking about? Tax evasion.
I looked into the companies you've been dealing with. I heard some suspicious rumors about cruise tech during our previous dealings, and it's been bothering me.
You investigated just based on rumors.
Sure, investigating based on rumors is unusual. but I had reasons to believe there was wrongdoing. I've known since we were kids that you like to throw money around. So I decided to look into it.
Throw money around? What do you mean?
You used to bribe the principal and go after girls with boyfriends using money, didn't you? Thomas paled, realizing I knew his secrets. He never expected his past to come back after nearly 30 years.
What? That was so long ago.
Sure, it's all in the past, but do you think your misdeeds just disappear with time? I glared at him. I haven't forgotten your wrongdoings, even after 30 years. While we lived honest but tough lives, you got away with everything because of your wealth. I'm sure I'm not the only one who finds this unfair. Those with money erase their crimes with cash and profit further from their misdeeds. Meanwhile, honest but poor people never see justice. It baffled me how this system worked. Back then, I could only watch Thomas's arrogance. But now, I could prove him wrong. And I had the power to do so. I wouldn't miss this chance. To make Thomas pay. He looked confused and said,
How would someone like you investigate my company? Aren't you just a delivery guy?
Who said I was a delivery guy?
What? You poor brothers must be in some low-end jobs, if not delivery.
I never said I was a delivery worker. Thomas just assumed that because my brother was and we were poor. I'm the president of Twain Holdings.
Huh.
Twain Holdings is a name often seen in TV commercials. As the president, Thomas must have heard of it at least once.
That can't be true. Twain Holdings is a major company with annual sales of $100 million.
That's right. I'm glad you know.
Impossible. There's no way you're the president.
Starting a company is no small feat. Even Thomas understood that much. Yeah, it was tough, but I made it thanks to my brother, whom you look down on. He worked hard so I could go to college. If my brother hadn't chosen to work and raise me, I might have ended up in a low-paying job myself. Starting a business would never have been an option. Because of my brother, I was able to get a job as a full-time employee. I learned a lot there and was able to start my own business. I graduated from college and worked as a full-time employee for a while. Thanks to that stable job, I had a steady income. I shared my earnings with my brother, who was still working in delivery, as a way to repay him. But even as a full-time employee, sharing my salary didn't amount to much. I couldn't repay my brother adequately that way. So I decided to start my own business. After careful preparation, I founded a small company dealing in daily necessities. Over time, it grew and became Twain Holdings, a large company. Now, including affiliated companies, it has annual sales of $100 million. I earn more than enough to support my brother.
You. Have you become the head of such a big company?
That's right. Cruise Tech still makes $50 million a year, right? Quite a small company.
You. Don't get cocky.
He inherited his father's company, but hadn't increased its revenue. He'd relied on his position and done nothing for the company's growth. Twain Holdings' revenue was double that of Cruise Tech. The gap was significant. Thomas had always looked down on us, leveraging his wealth. But now my financial position was stronger. It was clear he could no longer look down on us. So, what's with all the suspicious financial activity? How about explaining what's happening inside your company?
Well,
I asked, but Thomas had no answer. He must have been hiding a lot of shady activities. Seeing him silent, I smirked. Can't explain yourself, even as the president. This is your chance to prove your innocence.
even if you say that, I don't know. The employees must have done it on their own.
Trying to weasel your way out, huh? What a pathetic excuse for a president. Thomas had no response. He was probably shocked that his misdeeds were being exposed at a wedding. I pressed on. I didn't plan to bring this up here, but since you're picking a fight, I have no choice.
Damn it.
Tax evasion is a serious crime. What do you think will happen if I report this to the police? Thomas must have realized that getting reported to the police would be a disaster. He stammered out a desperate response.
Then keep quiet about it. How much do you want?
It seemed he was admitting to tax evasion. Maybe he thought he couldn't talk his way out of it anymore. You think you can solve everything with money, huh?
What's wrong with using money to protect yourself, huh? Isn't that what it's for?
But using money to cover up things that should never be allowed is wrong. Especially using it to hide your crimes. Covering up your crimes with money isn't something that's acceptable.
Playing the hero, huh? Everything in this world can be solved with money. You must want money too, right? Since you started a business.
Thomas laughed out loud.
So, how much do you want? Just name it. I'll make it happen.
It's not about money. Do you know why I went to such lengths to investigate your wrongdoings?
Why?
Because I couldn't stand your attitude of throwing money around. I confronted him. Do you know how it felt to be looked down on just because we were poor? My brother didn't hesitate to work hard to raise me, knowing it would close off his future. You mocked him just because we were poor. Dropping out of high school to work. In today's society, my brother must have known how tough that choice was. Dropping out meant his highest level of education is high school dropout, limiting his future. Yet, he decided to raise me in place of our parents. Who could belittle such a commitment? I wanted to fight back, but I didn't have the power back then. But now, I do.
Then, I apologize for that. Isn't that enough?
It's too late. No matter what you say, I won't forgive you. If he had repented when we were still students, things might have been different. We could have had a good business relationship. But it was too late. Even nearly 30 years after graduating from middle school, he hadn't changed. That unchanged attitude led to his tax evasion. At that moment, Kevin came over, apparently having heard the commotion.
Hey, Thomas, what's going on here?
Kevin,
Thomas looked startled, realizing he'd been caught at a bad moment. Beside Kevin stood Amy Costner, the bride. They must have come over after hearing the commotion. Kevin's previously happy expression had turned to anger.
What did you do to Justin?
Apparently, Kevin had already heard about Thomas pouring beer on my brother.
he was just a poor delivery guy crashing the party, so I thought I'd clean him up. I did nothing wrong.
Thomas replied arrogantly without a hint of remorse.
You. When I was a kid, Justin played with me and took care of me. He has every right to be here. How dare you try to kick him out?
There's no need to associate with someone like him. He's just a delivery guy with no social standing. Being nice to me would be much more beneficial for you.
What?
At that moment, Amy gasped as she looked at Thomas.
You.
What? You know each other?
Amy wasn't our classmate. I never saw her at school, so she must have gone to a different school in another area. I thought she didn't know Thomas, but apparently they'd met before. Amy then addressed Thomas with a cautious tone.
A few months ago, you asked me to hang out, right, Thomas? I declined because I was with Kevin, but you insisted, saying no one would find out.
What?
Kevin was shocked to learn that Amy and Thomas knew each other.
He kept pestering me, trying to get me into his car and inviting me to restaurants despite my refusals. I'm sorry I didn't tell you sooner, Kevin. I didn't want to cause trouble.
Thomas turned pale, realizing his misdeeds were being exposed at the wedding. He had a bad habit of targeting women who were already in relationships. He must have thought he could cover it up with money, never expecting it to come back to haunt him at a wedding. Kevin's face was filled with rage.
Thomas, I invited you today because we used to hang out as classmates. But if you tried to mess with Amy, that's a different story.
No, it's just a misunderstanding.
You've always had a thing for girls with boyfriends, haven't you?
Mark,
Thomas's bad habits hadn't changed over the years. Today, it was catching up with him. In a panic, Thomas tried to excuse himself.
I didn't know she was your wife. I swear.
Do you think I can believe you now? Inviting you was a mistake. Get out.
Kevin ranted, determined to protect Amy from Thomas. Thomas, feeling cornered, responded defiantly.
Damn it. What the hell? I'll crush you all with my power. I know where you all work. I'll contact your clients and ruin your reputations. You'll all be out on the street.
Well, I think your company will go down first. Because my brother should have already made the call. Just then, footsteps approached. A man in a police uniform, out of place at a wedding, appeared. Sure, it was a police officer. My brother, who had taken a break to dry off, had reported the incident. He must have explained the situation to the officer, who then came to find Thomas.
Which one of you is Thomas?
Everyone's eyes turned to Thomas. It was obvious who he was.
Hey, what the hell is this?
I heard you poured beer on someone. That can be considered assault. We need to hear your side of the story.
Thomas protested.
What? I didn't hurt anyone.
Even pouring beer or water can be considered assault. Don't take it lightly.
What?
Thomas couldn't believe he could be charged for pouring beer. It was one thing to be called out by people, but having a police officer say it left him speechless.
That's right. This way, please.
Wait. I'm the president of Cruise Tech. Let me go, and I'll give you as much money as you want. How about it?
Bribery won't work on law enforcement.
Damn it, let go. Reporting me for this, you coward.
Thomas screamed as he was taken away by the police. Kevin and I exchanged looks as Thomas was dragged off, still protest. For pouring beer on my brother, Thomas would face assault charges. That alone might have been a minor issue, but it led to the revelation of his other crimes. forgery of receipts to inflate expenses, kickbacks from contractors, tax evasion by hiding income and using the money to buy real estate. Investigations began on Cruise Tech. Eventually, Thomas was fined and ordered to pay $700,000, and due to the severity of his actions, he was sentenced to 2 years in prison. The news of Cruise Tech's tax evasion made headlines. With its president arrested and trust lost, Cruise Tech's contracts were canceled one by one, leading to its downfall. Thomas's father, the former president, was furious and disowned him. Thomas had repeatedly used money to cover his crimes, enjoying the benefits. But crimes not sanctioned by the law can't continue forever. He finally faced the consequences of his accumulated wrongdoings. Despite the commotion, Kevin's wedding proceeded without further issues. Seeing the couple's happy faces was a relief after all that had happened. I look forward to hearing about their everyday lives from now on. After that, I continued to run Twain Holdings. My brother kept working in delivery. With my company bringing in $100 million in annual sales, my brother didn't need to keep working. Given how much I relied on him when I was a student, I wanted him to take it easy. But my brother, not wanting to rely on me, insisted on earning his own living expenses. His sense of responsibility has remained unchanged since the old days.
Thanks for your help, Mark. Thomas was evading taxes that much, huh?
Yeah, he was always like that, causing trouble.
I wish I had been strong enough to stand up to him back then.
My brother said apologetically. I didn't want him to feel that way. I was glad I could protect him. Don't say that. I'm who I am today because of you. So please, let me repay you.
Really? I was just doing what I had to do.
Even so, not everyone could make the decision you did. So, consider this my thanks for supporting me all these years.
All right.
Maybe my brother finally felt that his sacrifices had been worth it. Thanks to his decision to drop out of high school and work, I am where I am today. So, from now on, I want to repay him in every way I can.